This is Frank Islam, Chairman and CEO of FY Investment Group, and your host of Tonight with Frank Islam. Today, we are fortunate to have a distinguished guest, Raza Rumi. Raza is a senior journalist and political analyst from Pakistan who is currently serving as a faculty member at Cornell Institute for Public Affairs in New York. He also was a former editor of Pakistan's leading newspaper, Daily Times. He's also editor of Naya Daur. I hope I pronounced it correctly. Thank you very much, Raza, for coming to our show, and welcome to our show.
Thank you.
So, my question to you is, I know you're a journalist. I wanted to ask you what's your thoughts on freedom of press in Pakistan, and can you shed some bright lights on the censorship in Pakistan? As you know, the freedom of press is a pillar of democracy. They're vital for a vibrant democracy. And do you believe that the freedom of press is under threat in Pakistan?
I think the press freedoms in Pakistan are definitely under lots of pressure, and from various power centers in the country. First, of course, the government of the day is not very tolerant of dissent or critical views. So, we saw that a senior TV anchor and a journalist, Najam Sethi's program, which was very critical of the government and news, that was taken off air, and the channel which was airing that show recently was closed down. So then we had another case just 2 days ago where a former finance minister from the opposition party, he was being interviewed by a TV channel, and the TV channel was told by the Pakistan Media Electronic Regulatory Authority to take it down. And then we have had in the past, instances where non-state actors like religious extremists and militants have been trying to muzzle, voices in the press or even attacking journalists. So it is unfortunately a very serious situation now. It had improved in between. I mean, one has to say it goes up and down, but in the past few months, in fact, for the last 1 to 2 years, there has been extreme pressure on the media to toe the line of the and not to say anything about the courts, about the military, about the ruling party. And so there are many constraints within which the journalists are operating and media houses are carrying out their work.
So they do not have a powerful platform to stand on, and the government is suppressing the freedom of expression, freedom of press, and that is not very healthy for a democracy to flourish.
Absolutely. For a democracy to flourish, the one of the vital tenets is a free press. But then I must add that it's not Pakistan alone which is undergoing this phase. So if you see neighboring India, where also
Yes.
journalists are facing lots of pressure, and you see what is happening in Turkey, what is happening in China, what is happening in the Philippines, what is happening in Brazil, and even in the United States where we are. It's
So,
unfortunately a global reality.
yeah, you are absolutely right. And I wanted to talk about a little bit about the Pakistan finance minister when he was here in Washington, D.C. He talked about that the fake news one of the biggest challenges in Pakistan. So, do you subscribe to his notion, and what your thoughts on the fake news? But the overriding motivation of the media is to separate the fact from the fiction. And as you said, Trump is the powerful purveyor of fake news. And
Yeah,
so my question,
yeah.
my question to you is, the fake news travels a lot faster than the truth. So tell me a little bit about that, and what role the media, the social media, is playing to promote the fake news.
I think there are two things here. Fake news have always existed. The propaganda, for example, if we see propaganda technique by the governments by powerful interests have always been there. But in the current climate, social media and digital technologies have become a major source of spreading fake news and false information or half-baked truth, to swing public opinion. And rise of technologies like WhatsApp. And I'm a fan of WhatsApp because I was carrying out my work for the newspaper through WhatsApp. So I need to keep a balance there. There are very good things about these technologies, but unfortunately, what has happened is that a lot of powerful interests use social media techniques to and the platforms to circulate misinformation, the case we saw in the U.S. election in 2016,
Yes,
where we
yes,
know
you're
that
absolutely right.
Russian bots were influencing American public opinion. And in India, there have been so many articles where WhatsApp has become a source of deaths, where a fake news is circulated, people gather and mobs gather, and you have lynchings, based on just fake news. And in Pakistan, what the finance minister said is partly true, but it's not the whole truth, because the thing is that the government of the day thinks that any criticism of the government, and especially its economic policy, is quote unquote fake news. Trump also says that whenever people criticize him, or media challenges him, he says, "Oh, this is fake news. These are fake uh, platforms." So it's no different, unfortunately. In Pakistan, what is happening is that it has been 8 months. A new government came with a lot of hopes. Many Pakistanis thought that Imran Khan and his team are going to turn around things, and Pakistan will be a different place. Unfortunately, that has not happened. Partly because
And
the
I want
government
to
is,
talk.
yeah,
I want to
go
talk to
on.
you, Raza, about your thoughts of the new government in Pakistan. Are they headed in the right direction? Or also talk about education, economy, job skills developments, healthcare, environment, corruptions, terrorism, and also the climate change. So I've given you a list of the things for you to tell us where are we headed.
So I think I mean, there is no question that our new Prime Minister Imran Khan, he means very well. I mean, he's a real, champion of corruption-free Pakistan, and he wants to book, the powerful old elites, and make them accountable for all the misdoings that they have done in the past. But the problem is that Imran Khan, to rise to power and to win the election, he relied on the same old elites, especially the rural politicians who have always been changing parties. And his team, unfortunately, is not a very strong team. So that is why a lot of domestic issues, some of them you named, but economy remains the biggest challenge for him. And it's not his fault, because he inherited a very difficult financial and economic situation. The previous governments had accumulated a lot of foreign debt. There were many repayments to be made of the foreign debt that Pakistan had accumulated. But the wavering by his team, whether they were going to IMF or not going to IMF, caused a lot of uncertainty, and the markets do not like uncertainty. So we have seen the stock exchange crash time and again. We have seen massive devaluation of the Pakistani currency rupee against the dollar, which has made the imports very expensive, and the exports have not increased in that time period. So Pakistan relies on imported oil, which keeps the country going. All the goods and services are transported,
Right.
and the price of oil is a determinant for inflation. So inflation has now hit almost 10% in the last few months. So, as regards terrorism, etc., Imran Khan has taken some bold steps. He has announced very clearly that he will not allow militants to operate on Pakistani soil. He has also arrested. I mean, his government arrested Khadim Rizvi, this Barelvi cleric who was, causing a lot of trouble and turmoil in the country. But former prime ministers have also said the same, they have made exactly the same statements. The real challenge comes: how do you tackle the long term problem of growing extremism in the youth? And how do you tackle the militant groups? And how do you undo their networks, their supporters? It's a big, onerous task. So we have a
It
national
is.
action plan. Yes, we have a national
I
action
want to
plan,
talk.
which was, yeah,
I want to
go
shift
on.
the gear a little bit to for you to talk about the two relationship, which is one to your neighbor, India, and what's going to happen if the Modi does, win the election, and the U.S.-Pakistan relationship. As for the India and Pakistan relations are concerned, it's better not to spend the money on the defense so that the both countries can help in infrastructure and skill development and educate the new generation. As far as the U.S.-Pakistan relationship is concerned, how does the Pakistani diaspora can play an important role in strengthening and broadening and deepening the U.S.-Pakistan relationship? And what's your thoughts of the Pakistani people about this administration in terms of the relationship? So I've asked you too many questions, and I hope you can shed some bright light on these things.
Well, I hope so.
Go ahead.
So the first thing is, well, Pakistan's biggest foreign policy dilemma and challenge has always been the relationship with India. It's a very troubled relationship with four wars as a baggage and continued rhetoric of the two states against each other. And it is not going to go away anytime soon. But history or evidence shows us that the BJP governments are always the ones where you can actually achieve some kind of a settlement or some kind of a negotiated peace deal. So Vajpayee, the former Prime Minister of India, late Vajpayee ji, he came to Lahore. He signed a Lahore
Right.
Declaration. And then he also engaged in dialogue with Musharraf. So it's the same General Musharraf who led the Kargil War, but Vajpayee and Musharraf also changed, and Vajpayee also was a statesman when it comes to building peace with India. So Imran Khan recently said that Modi's re-election might help with peace process. So I'm not really, to be honest, I'm not really sure about that, because the thing with both India and Pakistan is that both these countries are new nation states. They are only 71 years old, and nation state is a very Western European concept, where there's a difference between patriotism and nationalism. Patriotism is where
Right.
you love your country, your land, your people. Nationalism is where you say, "Well, I'm the best. I have the arms. I'll go and conquer, or I will assert my power and authority." So this nationalist feelings on both sides is so strong. Especially in India, we have seen that with the big, huge corporate media, they actually use jingoism as a selling point to the viewers, and that shapes public mind, public opinion. And we were talking about fake news. So the mainstream media in India has played such an irresponsible role. Even in the recent Pulwama attack, after that we saw how irresponsible talk was going on the media, even more than the government ministers. Sometimes they were saying, "Punish Pakistan, bomb Pakistan, do this," and this is not what a responsible media does. So I think that the future, it's really the key issue here is if we can get to a deal on Kashmir issue with the inclusion and with the agreement of the Kashmiris themselves. So there was a 4-point formula which General Musharraf had floated, which went to former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, and there was a back channel diplomacy. They had agreed on on pushing that formula. Unfortunately, Musharraf faced a big movement in Pakistan. Very soon he was out of power. Nothing came out of it. So I think if they can be some dialogue on Kashmir and some future solution, then surely we can overcome this challenge. But that remains to be seen, because Modi also needs Muslim and Pakistan bashing to rile up his support base. The
Right.
RSS,
Right.
the strong Hindu nationalist lobby. And in Pakistan, we always need the Indian enemy, the Indian interference, the other, to whip up nationalist feelings. So we are locked in a vicious a cycle as well. And as regards the
A
relationship with the
U.S.-Pakistan
US,
relationship?
yes. So,
Yeah, go ahead.
when Trump came into power, it started off on a very bad note. If you remember his tweet last year on January 1, that was like, I'm going to fix Pakistan. But then we saw over time things have changed and things improved because of the US decision finally to quit Afghanistan. So, for that, they realized that Pakistan is key to getting a settlement with the Taliban, Afghan Taliban, and for an exit. So things have kind of improved, and both sides are talking, although the talks have taken place, but they're not going anywhere because the Taliban are back to attacks and what we call the spring offensive in
Right.
Afghanistan's context. So I do foresee that in the short term they will cooperate, but in the long term, the reality is that the US views India as its strategic partner, and Pakistan is now too aligned with China and Russia and that whole axis. So in the long term, it is going to be a tough relationship to carry on. But as you say, the diaspora in America,
Good.
Pakistani diaspora
Yeah.
especially, can play a very strong role. It is not playing that
Right.
role, unfortunately. Like we have thousands of doctors here who have a very powerful body called the Apna,
Sure.
and they do
Sure.
very good work. But
Sure.
as a lobby, as a group, they have very little influence on policy. And similarly other professional groups, who can play that particular role. But I think the diaspora can do at least one thing, that they can improve and help with finding ways of humanizing Pakistan. The image of Pakistan in the public is that of a country full of terrorists. It's a dangerous country, and it is all anti-West and etc. etc. Which is not true, because Pakistan is a very complex and diverse country of 210 million people. So I do foresee, and I hope that the diaspora plays an important role and helps build better relations between the two nations.
You're absolutely right. The diaspora can help achieve, and they have the capacity and capability and responsibility to be politically
Right.
engaged to help Pakistan and to connect Pakistan with India, with not India but Pakistan and United States. And India diaspora play a very important role
Yeah,
um, in
they
that
do.
kind of relationship. And Pakistan diaspora can do the same thing. And also they're well educated and they're fairly well off, and they have the responsibility to make this happen. I hope it does, and I hope you take this as a challenge to talk to them to get them engaged more. I want you to shed some bright light on what Pakistan needs to do to attract some foreign investors. I mean, they're basically sitting on the sidelines.
Yeah, so foreign investment did increase. I mean, we've had a lot of foreign investment coming from China. So
Yes.
in the recent years, and Russia is also coming in with a gas pipeline and many other projects. So, but Pakistan needs to do more. So one is, of course, the cost of doing business. It has slightly improved. World Bank issues an index every year on that, and Pakistan has to take more measures to attract, because it's a big market. It has a lot of potential, lots of natural resources, and of course a population where a large consumer base, a big middle class, which has been growing in
Mhm.
the past decade. But the ease of operating a business in Pakistan, registering a business, doing local deals. So the government has to facilitate that. But I think what has happened, unfortunately, in the past 5 6 months is that Pakistan's financial situation where it is not being able to manage its external payments, has sent a negative signal to a lot of investors in Pakistan. And I think so now that Pakistan is moving towards a deal with IMF, that will improve, because they all foreign investors and fund and markets, they look at what the IMF says. Sadly, that's how the global financial system operates. So once Pakistan has a deal with the IMF, I foresee that things would return back to normalcy, but that's going to take some time.
So we have a very 2 minutes before we close our conversation. But what's your take and forecast for the economic and political future of Pakistan as we stand today? Do you see a brighter horizon? Do you see better days ahead of Pakistan?
I'm an optimist always, because I have my family there, I have my friends, my colleagues, my associations. It's my country, so obviously I hope and that its economy improves, its political climate improves, and I think the real difference in Pakistan that has been made is by its youth population. Pakistan is a very young country now. The average
Yes.
median age
And they need
is
to
24.
exploit those
Yes,
potentials.
exactly, exactly. But the problem in Pakistan is that the political instability is always that has a huge impact on policy, on continuation of policies, and we are, despite last year's elections and its transfer of power, we are still mired in political instability, because this government is tottering, and the opposition is very big and strong. At the moment, they are in jail. Some of them are in jail. They are not really active, but once they become active, there's going to be more tension. So, leading to yet another change or new election. I mean, maybe in a year or a couple of years. So, I think what Pakistan really needs is that Pakistan's political forces and Pakistan's military, the two strong players, need to sit on a table and agree that for the next 10 to 20 years, they have to create a stable and a peaceful environment for all these millions and millions of young people, because Pakistan's foremost priority should be economic and social development. Once we
Very
invest
well
in
said.
that, our future is secure.
I am in agreement, and they need to
Thank you.
exploit the full potential of these young generations who have so much to give, and the next generations. And you said you're very well. They have as I understand, the Pakistan has the largest populations of the people under 30,
Yeah,
correct?
yeah. Yes, 67%
Which
of
is
the
a fairly
population.
high. And so,
Yes.
and as the Pakistan population becomes more grayer, they can bring broad-based benefits to Pakistan if you can
Yeah.
create an environment for them to excel and to make a contributions and accomplishment to Pakistan's political and politics as well as economy. So thank you very much, Raza, for your time. This is Frank Islam wishing you a great week, and thank you for watching.